Okay, we are receiving today Olivier Godin, the director of Ylain Cahier Bleu, and also Dracula Sex Tape. And we're gonna give a moment to make some questions to Godin. And like a brief introduction to us, we are like a film festival, independent film festival in São Paulo. A lot of our members are from like more conventional film festivals in Brazil, and we are trying to create a new space where we can have autonomy in terms of programming, which is hard because in South America we are very attached to how the Europeans do things, like what is screening in Cannes and what is being screening in Berlin and everything. So to have a space where, and I believe I'm actually the artistic director of this edition, and my English is like I hope it become better during the interview. But uh, we believe in this generation, a very young generation of film programmers and film critics and everything. And we believe we need a space to see the cinema and give a Brazilian perspective and a South American perspective about what is interesting in terms of cinema nowadays. So that's the thing we are trying to do this year as our first edition, and we hope it works very well. And Olivier, the first thing is like for me it's very impressive how your films are not like, I don't know, bigger in terms of the reception, because every time I see a film of yours, I cannot like relate to another filmmaker. It's very strange. It's very, I don't know. Sometimes you see a film from someone and you can say, okay, this kind of school, it's from Berlin, it's from the 90s, or it have like this kind of influence, or it have this kind of, I don't know, connection to some period. It's trying to answer some kind of aesthetical movement. And with your films, it's very strange. And I think this is because, I don't know, this is my impression. You are like working in the both terms, like you're working with the cinema influences, but also the literature influences. And also I felt they are very like from Quebec. They are very like about this place. So I don't know, my intuition says to me, you are like not only a man from cinema, if this exists, but a person who is like working in like in a horizon with a lot of interest and a lot of fields. I don't know. And I want to know about your formation, how, like your background about this.
Well, I like the way you describe it. I think I'm a man of cinema first and foremost, but um, wouldn't be able to explain why. I mean, the films haven't, traveled more, but from my background, I mainly it was like cinema. Has always been important, but maybe like the like I grew up on television. Like it's not as I was in a I was where I was growing up is in the suburbs. There was no movie theaters near, so I basically like I often joke that my like obviously like American movies, action movies. Like I grew up on that, like watching that, and sometimes like I would go to the video store and pick up movies. Like I would take a chance on something, and sometimes it would be something. But usually, like the criteria when I was young, it was like, is there a gun on the cover? Yes, okay, probably gonna be good. So that's mainly my background. But but when I decided I first wanted to study in literature, but I realized after like one sessions that I didn't need to study in literature. I could write on my own, but making films was more of a challenge because I didn't know anyone who wasn't. I don't come from a family of artists or whatever, so I didn't know anyone. So I decided to study cinema and to film production, I should say. And with that interest in literature, and when I remember being very the first teacher I got, I was very young. He was very cocky, and he showed us the first class like we were very young at Cégep. I don't remember what age I was, but like you were showing us like these very like art like Tarkovsky, Godard films, just to break the students, to make them say like, this is like, we're not watching Independence Day or whatever anymore. And I remember being very impressed. Like I had no knowledge of these films, who Tarkovsky was, and I was, I think, 17 or 18, and I think I felt, I don't want to say ashamed, but I remember like I started like, okay, I instead of dismissing this because I didn't understand it, like I remember this summer, like I watched everything. I made a deep dive so I went from like Schwarzenegger to Tarkovsky like in a summer. So and I think that translates in my films in a way, like this sort of weird mix where I didn't maybe have the time to digest these influence. But today, like I'm sort of proud to have this, to be able, and it's also something that interestingly enough, the critics that I was reading at the time with vulgar authorism and all that, they were like, I felt I was their target for these, because I've been growing up with all these these films, and now I have a very broad, like I always say that even when I'm like looking to watch films or making them, I always say like I don't know what I like, but I know what I don't like. So I keep an open mind, and more so when I'm directing and writing, because I've been working with so much constraints from a budget standpoint. So I need those to have an open mind. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your questions. I feel like I've been going all over the place.
No, I guess so. Carol, Luis, you guys have questions?
Yes, going along the same train of thought, like between literature and film. If I'm not mistaken, you said that this film, Ylain Cahier Bleu, was born somewhere between Borges and Space Jam, which I thought was wonderful. What is it between those two that interests you?
Well, yeah, it's not like, that wasn't my pitch, my initial pitch. Like I wasn't, I didn't say like I'm going to sit down and write a mixture of those two, but it felt like it made sense. Basketball is a huge part of my upbringing and my life. I still I'm a basketball referee. I still play a lot, but it was more like to bring like same thing, like bring basketball with a very like in a setting that's not about like the who wins at the end, who it's just, and to add a fantastical layer to it, but in a very I don't want to be I don't know the right word, but a very human and sensible approach. Something like and that you find in poetry, for example, where you find extraordinary things in small things. In this case, is this man's everyday life and the way he dreams of himself. I thought that was an interesting way, and to bring those two interests of mine, which is like the everyday life of people, but also like dreams, and the way we and when I say dreams, I often means cinema. Well, the films I like are ones that I prefer, are ones that I feel like I'm dreaming with my eyes open while I'm so I don't know. Yeah.
And also about this specific film, I feel that not only it has this background of yours, so like the basketball thing, or also like the films that you like, but for me, the thing that's most special about your films in general, but this in specific, is like two different dimensions. What called that draws my attention, that it would be the image in one side and also the text in the other side. So in the way that of like what the characters are talking about and what's happening in terms of narrative, and also the image that's so carefully constructed. So I was wondering about how did the film came along to you at first? So is it like an image that you see, a dream that you have, a story that you want to tell? Like, how does it come along to you at first?
That I would have to make a long answer about this, because I've been trying to make a basketball film for a long time, and I've for over the years, there are lots of ways in Quebec where in ways you can get a film funded, what you get money from, and I had this project with a producer that with a basketball film on a much more bigger scale, a big budget, with a bigger budget, and that film I've received money to write it, but it never reached another stage, and we had to like put it in the cemetery of this institution that that we wanted them to finance the film. So I always wanted to make this, and at one point I was like, this is the project I want to make, but I cannot obviously make it for that amount. And maybe if I go get some smaller grants from the art council, I could rewrite it, and then came this idea of splitting it in two, to have one shoot during the winter and one during the summer, because we have such a small crew that would give us time to breathe in between. And I ended up basically spending all the money shooting the winter scenes, and when we came during the summer, we had no money at all. We shot everything in the park outside next to my place, the where you see the trees, and where the offices of that's basically, that was like a 5-minute walk from where I lived, and so this project, there was something I really like to do, that I had this project already, and then the fact that the budget that we had was really small, pushed me to write it in a certain way that opened a lot of new possibilities, and I had to sacrifice lots of scenes that I felt were pretty good, but then and then you add this, like you said, were there images? Of course, there were like basketball players in suits. That was one. There were others. There were, and I think also I wanted to film movement. There's something that keeps coming up about my films, that they're so anchored in the way, in talks, in la parole, the way people in speech, and I felt that I needed the sports to make them move, to make it more expressive in another way, and it's something I'm looking forward in what I do. To film movements, and yeah.
It's interesting that in the same year you did La Suite Canadienne, which is also a lot about movement.
Yeah, and actually the Suite Canadienne, which was really interesting, is that we started the shoot. It was a shoot but we started the shoot between we shot the winter part first of Ylain Cahier Bleu. Then I started shooting Suite Canadienne, and during the summer we finished Ylain Cahier Bleu, and I edited both at the same time. And so they were, I don't know, so they were quite closely linked together, and they're about, in a way, they're about similar things in terms of aesthetics. They obviously look very different, but in terms of movement of basketball, especially, like I didn't care whether I wanted to make a basketball film where it wasn't about like who wins at the end, or I didn't want this to have a narrative impact. I just wanted to film, bodies moving freely. And sometimes when you watch sports film, especially basketball, it feels the choreography feel, especially from if you've ever played the sport, you feel it's too choreographed. It's not as messy as a real basketball game can be. So yeah.
And Olivier, I'm thinking about like how you develop your cinema like during the years, since you're like you told about the vulgar altruism, your youth days watching Tarkovsky, the Schwarzenegger to Tarkovsky, then Schwarzenegger back, I hope. And I'm curious because your cinema, as I say, is very different from like other things you can reach in the beginnings of the 20s and after. And I'm curious because I see in your films I work with the actors in terms of like they seem very authentic, very from the place, but at the same time they have like a choreography in terms of how they speak, and a choreography in terms of how like they move inside the shot. Like you have like a strong sense of mise en scène, which is not that like I don't know that close. It's because I'm remembering a shot in the Suite Canadienne where you are like filming a guy which is in the I don't know in how it's in English, but in Portuguese it's balanço. He's like going front and you're like following him with the camera. So you're like seeing some kind of movement, but at the same time you are doing a negotiation with like something which is bigger. I think the lack of money like obligates us to do this, but I've seen some kind of like work in terms of choreography, and this is interesting. I want to hear more about it. But also your films have this kind of dream inside a dream feeling. You never can like say what is like the reality. The reality is very hard to reach to say this is like the ordinary world. I don't even know if the ordinary world exists or is the same from everyone. And I want to know how it's create this kind of strange fiction, but work which looks like normal people from Quebec and make them like fantastical figures. I don't know how you work at this kind of like line of I don't know research or investigation or like experimentation. How it evolved to you.
There's so many questions inside here, but I would say like the work with actor is very important. I usually when I write, I know which actors I'm going to work with. They're involved in the writing process, but I also work with professional and non-professional. And for I know that for people here, sometimes it's really weird to have professionals playing with non-professional, and so the non-professional I like to direct them in a very non-professional way, if I can say, like Emery, for example, in Ylain Cahier Bleu, the main character, he has this he speaks French in that very precise manner, and I kept directing it in that way, and then to put him I didn't want him to I coached him obviously, and I even hired a coach to help him prepare for the shoots because he had lots of things to learn, but I didn't want him to lose that that non-professional quality, if I can say, which is and I like to hear both. There's some scenes, especially with Etienne Pilon, the one who plays his best friend Lazare, who's a very professional actor doing a lot of theaters, and who has this, and when he creates a character, when he takes a character, this actor that I've worked with a lot of time, I give him space to mold it to its personality. He takes the words and changes them. Sometimes with Emery it was different. It was very precise, like there was even like breathing. I knew where he would breathe, and I liked to hear that these two voices coming together. It makes it more musical to me. But sometimes people find that very awkward and very weird. But it's something I don't know, I'm drawn to. and yeah, and like with Emery is a good friend of mine. Also, he's also a very good basketball referee and a very good basketball player. And ever since I've met him, I was like, oh, I like the way he talks, I like the way he moves. I want him in a film. I want him in a film. And I've made a film before that with where he has a small role in Il n'y a pas de faux métier, and that was like his auditions. I wanted to see if we could, and it went great, obviously. And yeah, so yeah, that's something I like, this blending of and like the image you talked about in Suite Canadienne, that's an interesting image because it's obviously a gag because no one would take the sound that way, but it was also a way to show, like, I guess the means that we add, but also it's also comments on the whole process, and it was also to show myself moving along those along them in a funny way, if I can say. And yeah, I don't know if that answers all of what you said. I tried to take note, but I'm a bit lost now.
No, I was just thinking because your approach to narrative is not that conventional in terms of like what you can expect from a person who have this kind of influences in the 20s would be like, oh, there is this guy and there is this girl and they fell in love, or like a linear story. But when I see your films, they have like a sense of reality, which is very strong, but they also are very dreamlike. And I felt a sense, and this shot for me, like, give me this kind of impression because it's like a fight between the conditions and some kind of I don't know, will to reach some kind of poetical truth. Not reality, not constructed reality in terms of like this happened first and this happened later, and try to emulate, try to work in the base of some kind of realism. The realism in your films are not in an obvious place. You need to like there is a lot of realism. There is a lot of like grounded things, more than most of realistic films, but they are not so obvious. I don't know if it makes sense. This is just kind of impressions.
Thank you for saying that, because I sometimes like here in Quebec, like some critics say like I make like ovni films and films for aliens and stuff like that, but I believe there's I put a lot of personal things in them in a way that is disguised and also I remember showing Les Arts de la Parole in a work print stage, and someone was like, you have a beautiful film there, but take away all the gags, the stupid gags in them, and you have something that's going to be. And I was like, no, but that would take away like all of it's the weird balance I'm trying to accomplish with all of with most of my film, to have like this. I don't, and it's not something like this that I can very much explain, because a lot of it rewrites itself on sets, and I also, there's something you said that made me think. I have like all my films, they have this linear arc, if I can say, but I like characters. I like to create characters, and even small characters. I will give them lots of lines, and I think that's why like actors like to work with me, I'm told, like, because I don't pay them much, and they like to come back. And I think that's because I'm very generous with secondary character, and I try to make them, give them a reality, if I can, and sometimes I like to, just create a character and introduce him like at whatever, and just go with him a little bit and see how he lives a bit. They don't necessarily have this you know, in a lot of conventional films, secondary character, they have personality sometimes, but not a lot, and they're mostly there to drive the narrative from a point to another. Where I like things to breathe. That's why I have sometimes difficulty to find funding for these films, because there's no structure. It's mostly character driven in a weird kind of a way. If I mean, I think that's might be the reason.
I think it's really interesting how, especially La Canadian, it's very like localized. You know, it's Quebec. It's really important that it is in Quebec. I really don't know much about the film scene in Quebec, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
On the film scene?
Yeah, what's going on in Quebec besides from you?
Whoa, that's well, a lot is going on. I would say. Yeah, I honestly I wouldn't know where to start because I feel like I my films, for example, they're on another they're like, there's the industry obviously, and there's like lots of interesting things that are happening that are more like local, like experimental. Or the documentary scene is obviously big and healthy over here, and in terms of yeah, I wouldn't know how to define the scene over here. There are, in the recent years, what's interesting is that there's small theaters, movie theaters that have in Montreal, especially, elsewhere also, but I'm more aware of it in Montreal, where they allow, for example, a film like Ylain Cahier Bleu, for example, it played in 3 theaters in Montreal, which is a lot, which is not something I could have done like some years ago. So small theaters with a capacity of like 40 person, and it makes it very pleasant for me to go to these screenings, because they're and it doesn't feel like I'm in competition with bigger films which have their own space, and it's fine. And also right now I'm in a position where so yeah, that's if talking from my point of view, from an industry point of view, I wouldn't be the right person to ask, because I don't care much for. I tried, and I still try to. I would love to make a film with a decent budget, if I can say, with a decent crew, but that never happened in my case. And maybe I would be more like, I would know what it is from the inside of. But now I feel like I'm on parallel to this, and I'm able to make films like every 2 or 3 years, which is amazing.
Yeah, I asked because I find it an interesting place to think about cinema, because it's in North America, but it is in the United States. It's also in French, and it also is in France. You also seem to have a political thought in relation to colonialism, which I found really interesting in La Canadienne.
Yeah,
so that's pretty much why I asked.
And if I can say your initiative, you should check out. There's a website called Panorama Cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you described, you guys made me think of them, and they have just started their own festival also. The critics from this website, and it's the Semaine de la Critique de Montréal, donc Critics Weeks of Montreal. It's going to be like in January, their 2nd edition, and they're a bunch of young critics, really passionate and very sensible, you know, to because that's the thing with films like mine, is I need to make them. I wouldn't have been able, I think, to continue if there wasn't like these groups. I'm thinking of them, but there are others obviously who supported them, who And I imagine that's your mission is similar in a way.
I guess, and we are discovering there is a lot of initiatives like us, and I guess like Panorama happening right now, because I think we have a feeling that there is some kind of saturation in terms of how cinema organizes itself. Pedro Costa said, I guess, months ago, there is no like big market of films, like a big industry as it happened in the past. We have like small groceries who pretends to be like a big industries of films. So we have like this kind of gigantic crisis, but at the same time, I guess everyone is trying to find a exit, which is not like necessary economical exit. Like let's save like cinema in terms of money, but like let's try to see how cinema can like deal with the like how you can make questions about the reality which surround us, how you can use cinema to discover new things, how we can connect cinema as a tool.
Oh,
I guess the connection failed.
I came back.
Okay, it's back. We have this kind of impression. It's hard to like. I guess Pierre Leon say that it's kind to make new images nowadays because we have this impression about like everything had been done. We have a lot of images. Like after the digital is like explosion of image.
yeah.
So what's and I give you this hard question, like when you point your camera to something, what you're trying to reach, like what you're trying to discover, like what moves you to do cinema nowadays?
Uh, poetry, I guess, certain mystery, something that I don't want to say that I'm searching for, but also I don't know. I'm drawn to, because we live in such a dark time, in such dark times right now, and to me, humor is essential to talk about life and to talk about real problems, and also like one of the things that I wanted to react on what you said, and I think that's what makes is that image. It is true that there's a saturations, and that's why there's a need for curated images, or spaces where that's really hard to do because there are so many, and I'm teaching at university, and like every year the students graduates and they want to make film. They want to be they I don't know if they want to make film or they just want to be filmmaker. There's this I'm trying to because the idea of being a filmmaker is very seductive, but every year there's more and more, and there's a saturation even in like the Council for the Arts, because of they have never seen so many submission for grants and stuff like that, because I'm thinking of AI. ChatGPT makes it much more simpler to write grant submission, and so the saturation I feel is gonna go on, and that's why we need these spaces that builds trust with viewers, but also with filmmakers, where there's this curation. I don't know if that's a word, but where it's where you can trust, and just like there's Cinéma Public next to where I live, where I know I can go there almost every night, and I'll have a good time. I'll get to see things interesting, get to think. So yeah.
And then if you what are you watching nowadays? Like what kind of films are like you're getting in love with?
Well, school just started yesterday for my children, so all summer long I've been watching children movies, I would say. So now that I have more time on my hand, I have a big list of things that I want to watch, either new films or things from, like, I'm I have here. I'm rereading like some past issues of CinemaScope, and like I haven't seen Saint-Omer yet, and I've just read a nice article with Alice Diop, and I thought, oh, I need to watch this film. So yeah, so I've been watching lots of children movies. Unfortunately, I wish I had a better answer. But I'm reading a lot on movies. Like I've just read. I don't know if you know that, the Liberated Film Club. Very interesting film club from London, where they were bringing artists and filmmakers to present films, but they didn't know which film it was going to be. So the book is all these different people that were introducing these films that they didn't know which was, and that's so I don't know. I'm reading a lot, I guess, on films. Read just finished reading Larry Cohen's The Stuff of Gods and Monster. I hadn't read it yet. It's an amazing book of interviews with Larry Cohen. So yeah, I've been reading this summer.
And Olivier, you talked about poetry and mystery, and I got curious because I read somewhere that you described yourself as a filmmaker of the couple.
Oh, yeah?
And I was wondering if you could comment on that. And also, I mean, we've talked about your past as like you're growing up on TV, not going to watch films by itself. But I was wondering if along this journey of yours, maybe when you started watching Tarkovsky instead of Schwarzenegger, but how did, like, what movies or what filmmakers did you come along that you think that really shaped the filmmaker you would become?
Yeah, I'll start by the last part, because I like to think there are defining moments in my cinephilia, and one of them was on television. We had this TV guide where the description of the movies were written, like very basic synopsis of the film, and I remember I was looking at it, and I was looking for like gangster movies or cop or whatever, you know. I had an interest in that young, and I remember reading the synopsis for Anabi Fireworks by Takeshi Kitano, and it was like this cop goes rogue, and I was like, oh, okay, that looks good. It plays at this time. Okay, I'm gonna watch it, and I was blown away, because this is not what I expected when I read the small paragraph about what it was, and it's something like clicked in my mind that, okay, there's someone making decisions. I was a little young to, like, I probably didn't even know the difference between a producer and a director and all that, but I remember this specific moment, and I like to believe that it was an important moment. I still love this film. I cry every time I watch, and every time it played, like it played at Cinémathèque, and I was like, I need to go. I need to watch this film. It's very important for me. So there was this Anna B. There was obviously, like, we can joke about it, but like Arnold Schwarzenegger's films, Jackie Chan's films, they were also really important in terms of making me believe in a reality that is not that is more complex than what we may want, like, especially in terms of the way you portray these. For a young kid, I don't know, it was pretty impressive. And yeah, I would say this. I'd like to think Anabi. There are others along the way that helped me shape the way I thought. For example, Ozu, for example, has been very important. Young, because I was so impressed by his. And I don't know where I've read that. I remember reading young that he said something like, from this film, I would never use a fade out anymore in my films. I was like, okay, you can do that. You can be, you basically like in his film, his grammar is very like simple, and younger, I felt I needed that, and I remember writing, okay, this is what I'm going to do for this film. This is what I won't do. This is what I won't. Now I don't do that anymore. But it was like I remember being very impressed by Ozu. Yeah, and yeah, there are obviously too many to cite. But and what was the first part of your question?
The read that you said you describe yourself as a filmmaker of the couple, and I was
Oh, yeah.
wondering if there was a relation between those things also.
Yeah, well, I love romantic comedies, and so it's sort of a playful way for me to present myself, to say like I read recently Cronenberg saying that his last film was a romantic comedy, so whatever. It's like something I don't know. It's something that I like. I like filming people meeting together, whether to become a couple or to it's something that I enjoy feeling, to enjoy the meetings of two people, and it's people sitting at a table and talking, and in a romantic setting it can be interesting also. It's an interesting way to create tension, I would say. So yeah, I might have said that, and I like to say that my films are experiment on romantic comedies, or yeah.
And Olivier, how about your future plans? We know you are going to Colombia to meet Pablo, I guess, to have the retrospective, but how about films?
Well, I'm in post-production for a new film. It's interesting because Ducarmel, the main character of Ylain Cahier Bleu, is also in this film, but he's not the main character. He became like a side character. So at the end of Ylain Cahier Bleu, as you know, he loses his job. I don't know if people are going to watch this before, but he loses his job. So at the beginning of this new film, he's starting a new job, and that's sort of the new film is also a weird romantic comedy, I guess. And then I'm already going to be shooting, and I had such a, you talk about Suite Canadienne. I wasn't aware that you had seen it, but I'm going to do a new documentary actually, and I'm starting shooting in October. I've received a small grant, and it's going to be really interesting. Yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. I obviously have other projects, but in the short terms project, those are the two. I'm trying to finish the feature I shot, and yeah, this documentary. Which also I'm going to do the sound again. I should say, because in Suite Canadienne I had no, and I know that Frederick Wiseman does the sound in his own film, and but in Suite Canadienne, because of the pandemic, there no sound guy or person wanted to work, and so I end up doing it, and I enjoyed it. So I'm going to do sound again. Yeah.
And Olivier, we hope to have you next year. It will be like a pleasure. We would love to have like a full retrospective. We want to work like to do it. When we heard, like when Pablo told me about the Colombian thing, I was like, no, we need to try to do this in Brazil and try to make it work in both countries. But it was like I had like just like a few months to do it. But we hope to do next year or next year. We're
Yeah,
gonna,
cut me in.
no, I think your body.
Oh, go ahead.
No. I just really think that your body of work is something very singular. So we need to show the films. I think the films are very singular, and I think like in Brazil, because like we have this tradition of what we call cinema de invenção. It's like invention cinema. We never had like the means to do like mainstream cinema because of the reality of the country. So the best cinema who it was made in São Paulo, for example, which is the city we are based, it was like youngsters, hardcore cinephiles, like doing like inventive cinema. It was very strange. It was very dreamlike, and they became with this kind of label about like inventive cinema. And we see like this connection of like the work you do, the work of Pablo Garcia Kanga also with this kind of idea with when the lack of means to do the mainstream cinema become like a door to exploration and discovery, is like a way of like freedom to be outside the industry.
And you need to learn to embrace that, and that's something that I've learned over the years. Because if I had the money that I wanted, to make the films that I wanted, I would have a completely different filmography. If I and that's what I say to the students at the university. You need to unlearn a lot of things. Like the last, when I went to university, the last film, my third year film, was shot on 35 millimeter with a 20 people, with a crew of 20 people, and I've never in my life had that. It's one of my worst film I ever made, and I don't show it. It's not available anywhere. It has great cinematography though, but I don't care for it. So you need to unlearn a lot from because the if you wait for the industry to open you a door to have then you're going to wait a long time. I guess I'm not very patient with them. So yeah.
One last question, just a curiosity of myself, and then I pass to Carol and Luis. Jacques Rivette is an important name for you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I'm like hardcore obsessed with Jacques Rivette. I did a master with about Duel and Noroa. I'm like my favorite filmmaker.
well, Duel. If you, there I could say a lot about Jacques Rivette, and I remember when I encountered his films. I remember like I don't remember exactly which one is the first that I saw, but I remember like there was a time where it was more difficult to find like the movies. Although I worked in a video store for like all my life, and like for example, we had one, but I knew that there was a copy in France on DVD that was a better transfer, and I had to order it. And I ordered like everything that was available on the planet by Jacques Rivette, and every day I would watch one. And I have a vivid memory of that, because every day was like I spent 4 hours or 3 hours with his movies. And and I obviously like him. I like his writing too, like his text on Howard Hawks. I quote it a lot for my own grants. I like him a lot. Yeah, I think like I identify my films. I identify maybe more with Homer in terms of means, but in terms of relation with, especially like the early part of his career, and in relation with the everyday life and with the magic of, I'm more of a Rivette guy, and yeah, I guess we could talk a lot about that.
I don't really have any more questions that I prepared, Luis.
Also, no, for me also it's okay. I'm really glad that we were able to talk to you, and thank you a lot for that.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure. A real pleasure.
Next time need to be in person, Olivier.
Yeah.
Hope to be in São Paulo, or perhaps in Quebec, or perhaps in Colombia. I don't know. Let's find a place.
Colombia, I know I'll be there soon, but yeah, that would be really great. I thank you for this opportunity. Let's keep in touch. And thank you for programming 2 films. That's really amazing, and can't wait.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those 2 films. They are like amazing, and we are very excited to bring Like, I guess it would be the first time you are being screening in São Paulo, no?
In Brazil, actually, right?
In Brazil, yeah.
Oh, this is it. We are very lucky to be the first.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. Yeah,
Because
I'm really glad to be part of your first edition. It's
oh, thank you.